Hello, everybody, and welcome to
Hello.
part 2 of the Unquiet Spirits, speaking for Unquiet Spirits. And again, we're celebrating the release of Unquiet Spirits, and today we're just talking about Asian literature and how our culture has informed our writing in general and all those amazing things. And also, who knows, honestly, what we're going to talk about, because it's always something really interesting. But I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you guys are here, and I'm going to let you guys introduce yourself and highlight whatever you want to highlight. And I will start with Celine, because she's kind of to my right. I don't know if she's to everybody's right. Put you on the spot.
I'm Celine. I'm maybe the latest addition to this book, actually. And I do a lot of editing, and I've done a lot of writing in the past, but not as much recently. But I'm getting back into it now, so we'll see.
Awesome. And who? What's your last name, Celine? I didn't catch
Murray.
That.
Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Who needs to know my last name?
Yeah, who needs to know that? All right, how about you, Christy? KP Kulski.
Hi, I'm KP Kulski. I'm an author of dark fiction and horror. I wrote Ferris Flesh and House of Pungsu. I'm a historian, a military veteran, and I live in Northeast Ohio.
Awesome. Well, welcome. Lee?
Yes, you forgot to say that that House of Pungsu is on the Stoker preliminary Barrett. So that novella and it's gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. Anyway, my name is Lee Murray. I am a 4-time Bram Stoker Award winner and USA Today bestselling author, and I write horror. And I do poetry and short fiction and novel, and I'm spreading my wings into some screenwriting, and I'm from New Zealand, and we're coming to you in the aftermath of a cyclone.
That's dedication right there, everybody. And how about you, Alma?
That leaves me. I'm Alma Katsu. I'm an author. I have written 3 historical horror novels. This is the most recent one, The Fervor. Whoops.
I love that.
So lovely.
I've been a bridesmaid, but never a bride. I've been nominated for the Stoker a few times. Haven't won it yet. Have won some weird awards that I won't bore you with. And I'm a former intelligence analyst. Worked at CIA and other places for many years. So I also write a spy series, and that's actually the next book that's coming out. Lee is a force of nature. I have to say, I just cannot. You are just so accomplished, and you're so energetic and so organized. Anyway, that's it.
I agree. And I think you might be breaking that whole the Stoker, the bridesmaid thing, because you have 2 preliminary nominations right now.
Yeah.
For the werewolf one and the Fervor.
Right. I keep forgetting about that poor werewolf story.
I have not. I actually need to get a copy of it. So I was going to look through the preliminary thing, and I'm going to get a copy of that. But anyways, that's on my list. So welcome, everybody.
Who are you?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I am your hostess tonight, Angela Rico Smith, and I write stuff. And that's about it for me. Yeah, we're co-edited Unquiet Spirits with Lee Murray, and we did Tortured Willows. Thanks for putting me on the spot, Lee. And we did, I was a contributor, that one. And as a contributor to Black Cranes, and and I'm super excited to be here with you guys. Yeah, and Alma did the foreword for Black Cranes.
I love that anthology.
She did
the Stoker, didn't it?
It did.
It did.
Yeah, Stoker and Shirley Jackson, I think, and then
and a couple of other nominations. It's been a fantastic, been groundbreaking for me career-wise. But honestly, though, Alma's forward was just launched that book. It really did. I mean, I was worried, but that you just gave us something so special and so powerful. And Genevieve opened it and we read it, and she said, "Oh, you know, "Ooh, this is strong." And Alma had said, "Oh, I think I might have been too strong." And I took it straight to my mother, so Celine's grandmother, and I said, "What do you think of this?" And she said, "This is fantastic." You know, and
Wow.
because you were brave enough to be so outspoken about, and so it was just the perfect intro into that collection,
think
which just
It hit me on a day when I was mad, I think. And if I had shown it to my mother, who is no longer with us, unfortunately, she would have told me not to send it. And what is wrong with me? All those things that you're told, right? So,
Mhm.
yeah.
anyway, I'm glad
Yeah,
you
and
had the
that's
courage to run it. Yeah.
that's actually where I
She-
want to start this discussion, because at that time, we were all kind of involved there in one way or another. And that was a particularly dark time, I'm going to say, for all of us as Asian descent. How do you think that affected everything that you've done since? I mean, for me, I'm coming from a place where that pivoted me. I didn't want to write anything else. How about you guys? I mean, did it affect you that way? For me, it was just like the anger of how, yeah, I won't get into a lot of details because that anger will come back. It still is not really quite gone. We need a few more anthologies, but it really did change me. And I feel like it changed all of us. I think it changed the world, because look at all the stuff, like Everything Everywhere All at Once or Squid Games. I mean, who would think that a subtitled movie in what's Korean, right, would sweep everybody's imagination, and that's all they were talking about. So, I mean, this is a new world, and yeah, what do you guys think?
Go
I mean,
ahead.
I can go on forever. So one of you guys probably wants
No,
to go
you go
first.
ahead, Alma. Go ahead.
Well, it's an interesting thing. I'm glad you raised the movie and the TV show, because those are great examples of how, when non-Asian people don't think about it, they're probably going to really enjoy, things that are sort of centered around Asians, right? The book that I held up, The Fervor, is actually the first book I've written where the main character is Asian. I don't know why it never occurred to me up until now. But this is about the internment camps in America during World War II. And I'm Japanese American, and my husband is Japanese American. And more importantly, his whole family were interned. So we know the story, and it's a really complex story, right? That most Americans weren't taught when I was in school. And now I understand, like, none of it really is taught. There's some school systems that teach it a little younger, maybe in junior high school, but by the time they get to high school, they don't talk about it. And it really is a great civics lesson for Americans. And unfortunately, the racism that made the camps possible, we're still seeing it today. So that's part of the reason why I wanted to write this book. After the 26, when COVID kicked off, and we had a politician who really politicized COVID, and it kicked off this wave of violence against Asians in our country that still is going on today. And so you see the two sides of it. On one hand, yes, we can be as popular as any other segment of the population, but then on the other hand, we still have these horrible things going on. Those attacks against Asians are mostly against elderly Asian women. What the F is that about, right? Like, what kind of political statement is that?
Who does that?
Right. Who does that? So, we still live in this very conflicted, confused world, I think.
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting that Alma's The Fervor, and both of the covers are really interest me, because the first cover that Alma just held up, you have the woman turning away, and it's that unspoken, unseen thing that exists in society. And I love the new cover for Black Cranes, which Alma has got behind you. I don't have a copy of that yet. Also has our character turned away. That what are we not hearing and seeing? And this is an opportunity. And then, Alma, the UK cover of The Fervor reminds me a lot of Unquiet Spirits, and that notion of women's, again, turned away, that women's erasure in the discussion, and how we haven't been able to be vocal and unquiet, and we just mentioned, our mothers would say, no, be quiet, don't say that, not your mother, Celine, but other people's mothers. And
your mother is perfect, Celine.
Yeah, our family's not like that.
and happily for us, not my mother either. But I just think that it's interesting how those covers have really captured that essence of what we're wanting to try and show, is that it's time now, we shouldn't be silenced. And, there has been this real wave of mistrust towards Asian people, especially in the United States. And I had heard some horrific stories. And I think that people were, that the people were interested in these new narratives and hearing our side of the story. So I'm encouraged by that. And for me, to Angela's question about, how has this changed? And Black Cranes was just meeting Genevieve Flynn was just a turn, just a turnkey moment in my life. We saw each other. Where are the other women like us who have these feelings? We saw each other, and it was just that moment of recognition. And then Angela with Tortured Willows, well, all of us with Tortured Willows, that oh my God, there are other people that feel this way. And then Angela went down a rabbit hole, and she was just crying all the time because she'd learned all these things about her heritage that had been silent, that hadn't been said, that no one had told her, and that she kind of knew but didn't know. And then Christy wrote us this forward, that I belong to this, I belong in this part, I need to belong to something. And for me, I don't see how I'm going to write anything different now. I just think that suddenly I'm brave enough because there's all these other fabulous writers around me who are echoing and saying, this was my experience, I felt this too, but I also felt this, and this richness of experience that we haven't seen. And so yay, for me, it's just been, thank you, Alma, for saying that, I'm a force of energy. But to me, it's the people underneath, it's the people around me that are giving me this source of energy, because I just feel so uplifted by this opportunity to spread these really incredible narratives and give other people some insight into our lives. And that's just, and it just means that we can be authentic and write from a place of truth.
Yeah, I want to follow on about that, because it's kind of like that, like collective inspiration, because there was a point of time where I didn't really write anything, and I've really gotten back into it because of these stories. And like Mom just said, our family, I've never felt like I couldn't talk about our Chinese heritage in our family, but I haven't necessarily known that many people outside of it that were the same, or that had the same, or were mixed cultures, that had Asian mixed cultures like I did. So that new wave of media that has those stories kind of was like, oh yeah, actually other people don't know these stories. It's yeah. So I have been really inspired to get back into it with that perspective that I think a lot of things haven't had until more recently.
Yeah, I think for me, I felt, like it was a responsibility. Excuse me. Because after everything that happened, I think like everyone else was horrified and worried. And I think really a big thing was like my kids at one point even asked me, like, do I have to be worried about you going out of the house, Mom? Yeah, so it hurt, to see that. But, again, Black Cranes was a huge thing for me too. I mean, I remember tweeting about like reading it, and I was like, oh my God, I feel seen. I like, for the first time I've read something that I feel like that, understands this experience. And that, I think, Lee also, gave me a permission that I never really had anywhere from anyone else, that, he said to me at one point, Lee, you belong. And, basically your views matter on this, and your experience matters. So yeah, it's empowering, all of it. And I think that that's exactly it. Once we've opened all of this up, I'm not sure how much I can stop. There's so much to be said that I didn't realize that we weren't saying.
Yeah, and I think that's a key to this, is that we were all isolated, because when all of that, the violence was happening, I remember having this thought. I'd never heard the term white passing until I think it was like the last panel. I'd never heard that term like in connection to like myself. But that was exactly what happened at the time. Is I remember thinking, with all the violence, nobody's going to think I'm Asian. You know what I mean? Like, I stopped using my middle name. I'm good to go. But then there's like this anger of, oh, hell no, like, but I think that there's been a huge reception to that. And I think, and this is leading into my question. I do have a question here. Do you think that other people are kind of feeling that hell no feeling? Because that's kind of why with Black Cranes, I mean, it wasn't just an anthology to me when you asked me, Lee. It was kind of like a yes, not only yes, but, all kinds of things I can't say right now. Yes, it was like a way to fight back kind of thing. But I feel like the reception is people's support of that. Like, yes, we also want to fight back, and maybe we're not writing a story, but we're fighting back with you. I mean, do you guys feel the same way? Like, this is not just the sisterhood solidarity of us all kind of getting together and realizing we're not alone, but other people realizing we are here and that we have support from them, like cross-culturally.
The horror community in particular is really great for that, in my opinion. I've seen a lot of really great support and celebration. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the response has given us permission, as Christy said. I think we feel like, actually, there wasn't a backlash. People said, welcome, we want to hear these new stories. And I think that has been part of the groundswell, because I think if we'd had a different reaction, if it had just slid under the table and nobody had mentioned it, then perhaps we might have just shelved that and said, okay, that didn't work. And, and I wouldn't have this feeling that I do, that actually we can make a difference. I think, part of it is growing up. I never saw myself in anything. So there was no fiction that sort of represented me anywhere. I never saw any Chinese little Kiwi girl in anything, and I still don't. And I think you have to write it. If it's not there, I need to write it. Someone has to write it. So let that be us. And now I feel like, and when you write it, it's that whole, if you build it, they will come, and they have come. And I just feel that is the timing was right. And for me, I'm just grateful. I'm just super grateful. And look at this community, just
So it really did surpass your expectations, you guys. You and I want to say Genevieve. Yeah.
Genevieve, yeah. Well, yeah, because look at the stories they brought us.
I know.
And look at the talent in these people and the community. Of course, Alma. Yes, absolutely.
I mean, I was thrilled. Of course, I love the collection, but I was thrilled when it started getting all the award nominations and then winning the awards. I mean, when it won the Stoker, I want to say surprised, because, a lot of those things are just the nomination is a recognition of acknowledgement of the quality of the work, but then it becomes sort of sometimes a popularity contest, right? Who actually wins the award. And I just thought there's no way that Black Cranes is going to win. Right. So when it did, it was like you said, it was like, this is a great validation. And I have to say that probably set me up for the Fervor becoming the kind of book it was, because it's the main character is a Japanese American woman who's in the camp. And my mom was the model for it to a certain degree. But my mom is old timey, right? She was a teenager in Japan during World War II. She has many crazy ass stories to tell about that, but she's a certain kind of Japanese woman, right? She is very submissive and doesn't speak out and is not violent or any of those things. But the main character for my book had to be, and it was a struggle to have her come into herself. And then, she's violent. She does things to free herself because she has no alternative. And I remember at one point, one of the editors, not Sally Kim, my editor, but somebody else who was involved in the process, said there's an awful lot of head bashing going on No, and I said, there'd be more if I had my way. I mean, like all this anger at the internment came out of me, what my in-laws went through, what other Japanese American families we knew went through. And, you know, I never, when I went on tour and talked about it, I was upfront about it. You know, she kicks ass. And I never even gave all those startled white audiences a chance to like ask me, what the hell are you talking about? Right. I just went on this tirade, like her anger is justified and, you know, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, yeah, I think we need more of that. And your collections have given a lot of us the permission to go ahead and feel that anger and, you know, really tap into our feelings and be honest with them.
Yeah. And I want to say about the fervor. My grandmother was in one of the internment camps, and in our family, it's like, yes, she was. No, she wasn't. Like nobody really wants, but she told me herself she was. So when I was reading the fervor, it was kind of like I was on a plane and I wanted to just like hit people with it. Like, do you see this? Yes, this exists. You should deal with it. You know, it's like, okay, calm down. I will get barred from the plane. I really don't want to miss my flight, you know. But so I thank you for writing that. And I just love how so much has just exploded from this. We've got the fervor. We've got yours, Christy. I mean, it's just like, bam. That's all I have to say. Now I'm going to be quiet and let you guys talk.
I want to say something as kind of from the supporting people's view, because I wasn't in Black Cranes, but I've been a longtime supporter of my mom's work, obviously. That for me, when you're not part of it, but you're really excited it's happening, is I'm more white passing, say, than my mom is. I could do a little bit more to get by, but I really appreciate mom's work and everyone's work to make a space that you don't have to do that as the next group of people coming in, you know? And so I think some of that support is like that, where even though maybe you wouldn't know that those people have those experiences, they really appreciate, or I've really appreciated that you are making that space for us to be more ourselves.
I really love hearing that because my kids are 10 and my son's about to be 12. So, you know, part of definitely my motivation for doing this is to see exactly that, to do it for them, you know, and that they don't have to deal with this crap. They can get to the point that they can talk and feel like they can, you know, belong and take up space and, you know, speak their truth. So I absolutely love that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, Celine wasn't going to be in Unquiet Spirits. She was not invited to be part of
that is
true. This book. So the story is that Celine is my editor. I usually send most stuff to Celine. She's a great eye, and I sent my essay to Celine to edit, and then she sent me back my edits with her response, which is the essay that's in Unquiet Spirits, and which is a Fox Spirit essay, a lot like Christie's is. And of course I just bawled my eyes out because it was that response to, hey, I didn't know this, but hey, look, this is how I feel. And I sent it to Angela and said, oh, Celine sent me this. And of course, Angela being lovely, she said, we need this. This has to be in, this is important. This needs to be in there. So
no, that wasn't being lovely. That was being greedy.
Yeah.
I feel like I muscled my way in. I was like, I'm going to be in this one.
So it kind of is nepotism, but not, you know, like it wasn't intentional nepotism, but and very proud of that Celine felt strongly enough about the story that because my essay is about hungry ghosts and my understanding of it as a New Zealand, a third generation New Zealander, and the fact that I, you know, don't know those ancestors that came from China, and Celine, of course, hadn't seen some of the rituals, the burning of hell notes, and so she had this response of her own. It's the secrets that I've kept that I haven't realized I've kept from her. So so we're talking about seeing and being represented, and so she saw something there that I hadn't told her, and so she had her own response. And one of the things about Unquiet Spirits, and which has just been incredibly powerful, is the discussion between mothers and daughters and sisters and aunts, and just has, and between us as writers. Angela has had this incredible dialogue with her mother about her Japanese past. I've had one with my mother about my Japanese past, because as a Chinese person we don't discuss the Japanese side, of course, because that is it interesting how complicit we are. And then Genevieve with her mother, and Christy having a discussion with her mother, which I think is just incredibly powerful, to have a discussion with a mother who is now deceased. That is just special and wonderful to be able to connect and have a discussion through the lens of supernatural myth and folklore. I just think it's just incredibly special. So this wider dialogue has been particularly empowering, I think.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Yeah.
We have 3 works represented here, because we've got Unquiet Spirits, we have The Fervor, and we have House of Pengsu. What I'm hearing a lot of is that we've connected to our past. Do we? And then you talked, Christy, about connecting for your children. Do you see our works now almost becoming like bridges between the generations? Like, we're preserving some of the past, because it tends to be very secretive. I want to say, like, a lot of my stuff is don't talk about it or they'll come back and haunt you, kind of thing. That's like the stories I get about my family. And then one of the things that I wanted to do was write it for my children, who are all adults. Do you see that in your own work?
Yes, definitely. I'm like, for me, Korean families don't talk about things like this, and so the things that I know about are because I did have one really talkative auntie who, I did get information from, and then a lot of research. So this is the ability to kind of pass that down and to examine that, and then also examine, I actually just wrote a newsletter regarding this, but I haven't sent it out yet, but it's about the Korean idea of Han, or that it's kind of like this generational burden, and like total cultural burden and sorrow and stuff. And I feel like in a weird way, we do that. We still have it. And then when you think about epigenetics, I mean, it's still in there, the idea of trauma affecting our genetics. Yeah. It's essentially that. So, I feel like this is a chance to pass that down. And I hope that, maybe the next generation can wonder, when they wonder why they've kind of got this Han, they can figure out where it came from.
Yeah, and that's why I chose the fox spirit to write about as well, right? Because it's interesting, Angela, that you said that, don't talk about it or it will haunt you, because as the next generation, I'm feeling like I don't know it, but I'm made up of it, so it's still haunting me, even though it hasn't been talked about. So that the reason that I chose the fox spirit, which I think is, that you are made up of all those things, and the next generation will be made up of those things. And if you don't know it, then you don't really, how do you know yourself? You're like hungry to have more of it.
Ooh, that's an interesting idea. What if we are the hungry ghosts?
Yeah, and we must not want too much as Asian women, but unfortunately we do. We are ravenous for more. So, and these essays, my goodness, Angela and I, when we got the essays in for Black Cranes, and Angela sent me her stories for Black Cranes, and she said, I am bashing the keys. So the same feeling that you had, Alma. She said, I am literally bashing the keys, and if I will give you as many stories as you want, because I am bashing the keys.
How many words do you want? I can get a new keyboard.
Yeah, and honestly, and she wasn't the only one to make comments like this, and Rena Mason wrote me us this beautiful part, and she said, I just needed permission to do it. And just, so everyone brought something really special to that. And I think for Unquiet Spirits, I'm going to say, with Tortured Willows, we were kind of still exploring what we were doing in Black Cranes, but with Unquiet Spirits, it was just a little bit different. And everybody brought a different voice and, just a different approach to their essays. And Angela and I knew it would be good, but we had no idea that it would just be the text that we've got, which is just, I'm going to say I've read it maybe 20 times now, because as an editor, that's what you do. But I cry every single time I read it. It is just such an emotional, sucker punch, really, isn't it, Angela? And
Oh yeah.
I still cannot believe the work that is there. I feel like if I do nothing else in my life, that is enough, because I really am so grateful for the work that everybody brought. Their essays are just so distinct and so different and so perfect. I couldn't be more grateful for well, I know you feel the same, Angela, don't you? We're just the editors on the, we're just the editors, but the work is just amazing. And also we struggled, of course, with the hubris of, Asian girls. Angela and I put ourselves first and last in the book. We go, oh no, we can't do this. We can't do this. It's not going to work. We can't possibly be first and last in the book. But it just works that way in terms of how we put the book together to sort of cradle the collection with why we were doing it and sort of what we had seen. Because Angela's work, both Christy and Celine looked at the fox spirit in very different ways. And then Angela came at it with the Nukikubu sort of headless apparition, which is just an incredible story, a real life story from Angela's life. And so those two, as a way of looking at the fact that we are still haunted, as Angela said, by these narratives that happened to our mothers or our grandmothers or our forebears, or, someone way in our history who was a fox spirit, So I think this particular collection, I'm just super proud of the launch and super proud of these women. And I really feel that where we might not have got with Black Cranes and we didn't get with Tortured Willows, Unquiet Spirits will find those people, at least I hope, will find those other readers that may not have discovered these other two works. And and again, what you were saying about House of Pangzu and the fervor, and we've got, Yang's coming out with Lingun, and Genevieve Flynn is writing an incredible novel about Chinese pirate, women pirates, and there's just so much wonderful work coming from this group. We've got poetry collections and we've got short story collections. Yvette Tan has done some wonderful things in the last year or so with her short story collections, Filipino stories. We've got children's stories. Gabriella Lee is writing children's stories, and so I just think just across the board we're getting this, this barrage, this lovely, flood, cyclone, if you like, of new work and new voices, which just really exciting. One of the things I'm going to just ask Alma, and because something I noticed between, say, your other historical work, say, or your spy fiction, is that the spy fiction and even sort of the Hunger in the Deep has this much more, it's very gritty and visceral type of, matter of fact, more writing. And when you came to the fervor, I don't know, I mean, it still has that very action oriented and very strong plot lines, but I also felt there was kind of a softness and more of a poignancy to your style that I didn't see in the other texts. And I wonder if that was something that you noticed or even your editors noticed.
Well, I don't know about the editors. It was an interesting process with that book, but I do feel that there was something very different about it. But I couldn't really put my finger on it, but I agree. There is a poignancy in it. And I think it's because I was just channeling so much of what I knew my mom had gone through and what I knew my in-laws had gone through. And just that inner knowledge, I think, it makes me sad, as an American, for instance, that this kind of thing had to happen to its citizens, and citizens still get blamed, right, for the crime that they're accused of, even though they're totally innocent. So there's probably a little bit of that going on there too. But a big part of it was drawing on the knowing what my family had gone through and my husband's family had gone through. And there's no writing it. There's, correcting it. There's no putting it back in the bottle. There's only trying to set the record straight and go forward. And, you had talked about, do we feel like we're saving this, we're like a bridge to bring these stories and these thoughts and ideas into the future. Well, I don't have children, so I don't have that kind of bridge. But I do have to say it's been heartening how many younger people have come back and said, I had no idea that this is what happened. I had no idea, right? That these Japanese people were actually Americans too. And, and we did this.
Not the enemy.
Right, not the enemy. So yeah, I think everything that we write is, can serve in that way to carry it forward so that these ideas and these voices don't get lost.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's the history. What is that saying? I'm going to butcher it now that I let it out of my mouth. But like the history that we don't know about is destined to repeat itself.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Christy, you're a historian. You know what I'm talking about.
No.
It is like, I feel like that is kind of like our mission now, is to keep bringing these stories out, because I feel like we've all been told the same thing of like, don't talk about it. It's embarrassing. It's this, it's that. We don't mention it. And we are being very mentioning of it. We're being very unquiet. So,
well, how do we prevent, further atrocities, right? We talk about the ones that happened, and we look at them and figure out what the signs were for them happening in the first place. So, and I think that's why a lot of us are alarmed, with things that are happening now.
Yeah.
And we show our humanity. I mean, this is something that came up in World War II, of course. The Japanese and also Chinese were demonized and seen as this, horde that was not human almost, right? And as long as they can continue to look at you that way, that you're just sort of, a robot or something, and that you're not human, then they can act against you. But it's when you show them, hey, I'm just as human as you are, even though I have what I think in your books you show, there's so many facets, right, to what it means to be Asian. Every story, practically, every one of us has almost a unique story, right? Because it depends on our ethnicity and our family's heritage and all that. And only by sharing these stories can other people who are not us see that in a lot of ways we're just like them, right? And that's what these stories really do. Like with Black Cranes, I was just blown away at the variety of stories in there and all of the different flavors, right, of ethnicities. It was, we need more of that sort of thing.
Yes. And so I'm looking at everybody here. We need more of this sort of thing.
Working on it.
Well, I would say as well, that's where like the horror and the monster stories are really, really help towards that goal, because where you feel like you've been almost dehumanized, then if you write a monster story, you can show that monsters are a reflection of that humanity. Those ideas are in those stories.
Yeah. And we have to ask ourselves, which end of the pitchfork are we on? So, well, I want to say thank you, all of you, for being here and for writing what you are and for being those people that are bringing these stories forth so that history is not forgotten. That's an excellent way to fight that, but also buying our books is an excellent way to fight that. So if you want to fight all of the bad things in the world, you just have to buy these books that we have mentioned in this. And we're going to mention them again right now. Each of you tell me kind of what you have coming and what you have out now, and mention all the good things, all the preliminary awards. Like this is, really lay it on thick. all the good things. And there's so many. This could be another hour, like everybody who's watching, because there's a lot of great things right here in this panel. So who wants to start? Now everybody's like, oh my God, I'm not starting.
Oh, I can start because I have the least probably. I'm a bit of a, like, just diving back into writing again now. I'm working on some poetry, and they're kind of focused, there's quite a lot of that, cultural or othered perspectives, like those little everyday hurts that you get when you are on the outside perspective of things. So hopefully I'll be doing something with those in the future.
Awesome. Christy, I'm just going to call on you guys right now.
That's all. I'm not good at this. So I have House of Pengsu out right now. That has been on the long list for the Stoker Awards. So we'll find out what's going on with that here soon. Particularly proud of that one. That was one of those situations as I was writing it, I realized I was writing it for my mom. I actually didn't realize it as I was doing it, and I got through it, and I was, I felt like it was where I definitely felt like I learned who she was, much more. I'm working on a novel right now that's very much about Korean American mixed race experiences with immigrant mom. There's a lot of similarities with my own history and my mother and her her experiences throughout the 60s and 70s in Korea. And then I add ghosts, especially Korean water ghosts, and things get a little bit messy, so that's always fun.
How about you, Lee?
Well, this last week I've been working on that film. So it goes into production in about a month's time. And so unfortunately, we've written a $20 million film. We don't have a $20 million budget. We have a $5 million budget or something. So we've been sort of, rewriting little bits and working on making some changes there. I've absolutely been loving the experience. The film itself is a Asian Kiwi weird science body horror film, and it has a fox spirit theme, but it's really gruesome. It's real horror, and I'm loving it. I'm working with Sasha Rainbow, who's the BAFTA nominated director, and she's just absolutely fabulous. And just the two of I love working with her because we just bounce ideas, and it's just really fun. So anyway, everything with film has to be done yesterday, so this week's that's what I've been doing. I finished Fox Spirit on a Distant Cloud, which is a poetry collection. Well, it's a prose poetry collection, so it turned out to be about 26,000 words. So it's not quite like it's not quite the same kind of format as Tortured Willows. And that's out on submission at the moment. It has a foreword by Genevieve Flynn. She was just super kind, super lovely, and really that was one of the hardest things I've ever written. It basically follows the iterations of 9 women who in the Chinese diaspora in New Zealand, as based on actual past histories that I've found researching through Papers Past, which is a New Zealand archival site, and various other places, and the stories are quite horrific. So the first evidence of a Chinese woman in New Zealand was described by the New Zealand press as an almond-eyed difficulty.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
So, so that just drawing on some of those really, interesting perspectives, and so I found it very hard. And of course, I wrote it during COVID as well. So when I came back to revise it, it was like, it was what have I written here? It's a big fug, and it needed a bit of work. So it should take me quite a long time. So that's out on submission at the moment. And I'm working on a novel idea. So and a few other things. I just always seem to have a few other things in the fire. So I can't talk about all of those yet, but hopefully I'm just mostly excited to see what's coming from everybody else, really. And I'm getting to read a lot of, it's a bit sneaky, but I get to read a lot of stuff ahead of time. There's people ask me for blurbs, and I'm going, oh, yes, I'll read this. So I'm getting to read what's coming before a lot of other people. So that's a real privilege, and it is exciting to see these new narratives coming forward. So for me at the moment, that's one of the special things about, being, I don't know, the doyen, I suppose, of the oldest, I guess, not the of this group, is that I'm seeing these young women come through with these incredible creative ideas and getting to have a sneak peek at them. So that's been really special.
You are not the oldest of the group.
I was actually
I might
like,
be, Alma. I think I might be. I think we've
I
had
don't
this
know.
conversation.
Well, are you
No one
coming to
knows.
Pittsburgh? Maybe we can show each
Have that
other our
conversation
driver's
again
license.
about it. We'll fight it out.
hey, that sounds like a drinking game. We can each have our licenses and we'll be like, all right, 1, 2, 3, the oldest one.
Well, I'll be pretty drunk then. But
I don't know.
yeah. So
How about you,
I'm
Alma?
probably the weird person in the group because I don't know. I switch between historical horror and spy novels, and this year is a spy novel that's coming out in just a couple weeks. The Fervor paperback will not be out until the fall of 2024. I don't know why the publisher decided to do that, but that's going to happen, and they're going to have a special like reprint of The Hunger will be coming out at that same time.
Oh.
So
Congratulations.
thank you. Yeah, as Angela mentioned, I did a Amazon original story, so it's only available on ebook and audiobook. But that was The Werewolf, which came out around Halloween last year. It was, as somebody mentioned very graciously, it's also been long listed for a Stoker Award, and that is about Germany at the end of World War II, and it's and werewolves, Germany being the birthplace of werewolves. Let's see what else. Oh, and this summer I'm going to have another Amazon original story coming out that's kind of different. It's if you like the X-Files, you'll like it, and it's called Black Vault.
Oh,
Looking forward to that.
nice.
Yeah.
We're
Awesome.
hoping it's like tailor-made for a TV show, and I probably shouldn't talk about it, but we're working on we're looking at an offer for the film rights for Red London, which is the next spy novel. So
Oh, congratulations.
awesome.
That's really
Yay.
cool.
yeah, money.
Wait, what is that? What is this
Yeah,
N-word that you talk about?
exactly.
I know. That's the really, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of thing that as women, and especially Asian women, were probably taught to like, is kind of taboo. But money, you need money, right? Money is power
Yeah.
in this world. So
Yeah.
I'm
it
all
is.
for it.
Yeah. Show us
buy it
money,
legally.
people. Buy the books. Buy the books.
Yes, yes. How do you show your support to all these wonderful people? Buy the books.
Mm.
So, well, thank you so much for all of you coming on. I'm going to link all the books and everything we talked about in the description. So if you come back to this, anything that was talked about in here, you'll be able to find the links to. And like I said, buy the books. So, all right. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. And yeah, we'll see you again very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Angela.
Thank you.
Bye.